students, I am Rajeshri ma'am, and I am today giving you an explanation of a very short and simple poem, but which has a deep message in underlying it. And the poem is "When I Heard the Learned Astronomer" by Walt Whitman. Walt Whitman was an American poet of 19th century. In the 19th century, if you have read history very well, then you must know that many discoveries, many inventions were being made at that time by the scientists. Today also there are inventions of science, but we are now habituated to them. That is why I do not have so much enthusiasm about them. But at that time people were very much enthusiastic. They were very ardent about the discoveries, new inventions, and there were lecture rooms open for the common people, and people could go there, and the experts or the learned persons would give lectures on their subject over there, and everyone enjoyed those lectures. And thus Walt Whitman here also had gone to a lecture room. The theme of the and but he gets bored very easily by hearing the facts and informations given on the nature about particularly on astronomy, on the stars and the skies by the astronomer. And he went away from there and enjoyed the beauty of nature by feeling in the complete silence. This is the theme of the poem. And about the poet, what is written about the poet in the introduction is, I read out them. And Walt Whitman worked as a journalist, a teacher, a government clerk. His major work, Leaves of Grass, was a volume of poems that he kept adding to throughout his life. His style broke away from conventional poetry, and some of his poems seem very close to prose in their style. He wrote in free verse, and although he did not invent it, he is known as the father of free verse. Whitman continues to be one of the most influential American poets. Here you see what is novel about Walt Whitman. He wrote in free verse. There is no rhyme scheme in his poems. It was not invented, the technique is not invented by him, but he used it so much that he is known known as the father of free verse. And now I recite the poem. I am reciting the poem before you. When I heard the learned astronomer, when I heard the learned astronomer, when the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them, when I sitting heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room, how soon, unaccountable, I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. It is very much close to prose, the style of prose. That is why the verbal meaning of the poem is very easy to understand. Uh, when I heard the learned astronomer, there was an astronomer giving lecture in the lecture room, and I heard it. When the proofs, the figures were ranged in columns before me, when I was shown the charts and diagrams to add, divide, and measure them. These are the tools used by the astronomer to prove his point, his subject. When I sitting heard the astronomer where he lectured with much applause in the lecture room. He was being applauded by the people when he gave his lectures, and that is why you can understand he was so much cherished by the people. And here a poetic device used by the poet is anaphora. That is a word repeated after a certain of the beginning of the successive clauses. At the beginning of the successive clauses, that is here when, to enhance the effect of the poem. Here uh, it has denoted that he was very much bored, or it shows the monotony of the poem, the repetition of the same word. And this is the first part of the poem where he was getting bored by the astronomer. And this here it is the second part of the poem. How soon unaccountable I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out I wandered off by myself in the mystical moist night air, and from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars. Then he says that how soon unaccountable means which cannot be described, accounted. I became tired and sick, till rising and gliding out. Glide out means to go out noiselessly without attracting anyone's notice or attention. I wandered off by myself. I went out myself uh, and go here and there, went here and there in the mystical moist night air. Mystical means very much having an inspiring awe or fascination. So that is something divine, very deep feeling, mystical. And in the night air, from time to time looked up in perfect silence at the stars, and I felt the silence, and felt and watched the stars in that silence. It evoked a different feeling in him to enjoy the beauty of nature that is far away from the facts and informations of the astronomer. So this is the explanation of the poem and the question answers. In the first half of the poem, where is the poet? It is very easy. In the first half of the poem, the poet was in the lecture room. In the first half of the poem, who is the poet with and what is he doing? In the first half of the poem, the poet was with an astronomer, and he was giving lecture. And number C, which words or phrases show that the astronomer is respected by the poet and the audience? The words or phrases that show the astronomer is respected, that is learned and applause. These two words are showing it. And in the second half of the what scientific tools and methods does the astronomer use? He uses figures, proofs, columns, and diagrams. These are, and charts. These are the tools he is using to prove his subject. In the second half of the poem, where is the poet? In the second half of the poem, the poet is outside under the sky and in complete silence. Then in the second half of the poem, who is the poet with and what is he doing? Second half of the poem, the poet is with no one, and he was only watching the sky, night sky, and the stars. What words and images in the first half of the poem are a contrast to the perfect silence in the final line. That is the applause, the noise of applause in the lecture room, and lecture and noise of applause is in the contrast of the perfect silence of the second part. What is the message of the poem? As I have explained it already, the message of the poem shows that is that the beauty of nature, the nature is very vast. This universe is very vast. We cannot measure them or fathom them by mere facts and informations, and we have to feel the beauty of nature through our hearts, to enjoy the beauty of it. That is the message of the poem. So this is a short lecture about this poem. I think you have enjoyed it, students, and stay with me for in the next video, and till then, bye. Thank you, and subscribe my channel.